ASMR Who, and this is my reaction, my review, my thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of The War Between the Land and the Sea. So this is episode 3, The Deep, and episode 4, The Witch of the Waterfall. So I watched these a couple hours ago, near enough on broadcast. This video I'm only going to get out on the Monday, the day after, of course, today. Yeah, this show continues to be really good. I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes last week, and I think maybe episode 3 is my favourite so far. I just thought that the kind of everything leading up to them going down into the sea, the kind of Romanche trench, and into the kind of 5 miles down. They kind of build up to that, and that's the whole kind of sequence of it being lowered down. And I think you could arguably say that it was a little bit drawn out, but the tension of that sequence really, really worked for me. Especially because I think this was probably written before it happened, but that we know obviously about the kind of the very small man submersible. I forget what it was called now, that imploded last year, or a few years ago. I want to say last year, but it might have been longer ago than that. But that was kind of, going through my head the whole time, of, knowing about that, and about the kind of possibility of that. And even though I didn't at any point think that would happen, because, our main characters in this submersible, there was still a real tension to that. And the way all the characters behaved, I thought what was really interesting was, I forget his name, the character who comes along with the globe. Tim something, I think the character's name was, who in the kind of lead up to it was very kind of chipper and very kind of, I'll be fine, and we're a team, we're together, and he was kind of laughing and whatever. And then he was the most kind of anxious and nervous and jittery in that thing. There was the Indian delegate representative who, had this very real fear and anxiety. And the characters all just felt very real, and the way they interacted felt very real and very true to them. The way Barclay was kind of talking them through it and reassuring people, the way that Pierce was very kind of stoic, and he's kind of single-minded in that way, I suppose. And what was interesting is that as they were making the descent, I didn't think that any of these characters were going to die or anything, but of course come the end of the episode there's a lot of death, and it was very shocking. Not only all those people gone immediately in a really horrible way, but of course to kind of move over to the other main strand of this episode, with Kate, who really shone in both of these 2 episodes, but I think episode 3 especially, when she is dealing with a lot, she's kind of not sleeping, and you have this, couple of moments between her and Ibrahim where, he's trying to reassure her, and also just being like, you need to rest. Like, we can't do anything for them at the moment, go home and rest. And their kind of connection felt very, again, it felt real, I believed it. And, when was that first kind of inkling between those two characters back in whenever it was Empire of Death. I remember thinking it was a very weird pairing of characters. I didn't really particularly see, why they would. It just felt very strange, and it is still a little bit strange. Gemma Redgrave, the actor, is about 20 years older than Alexander Devrient, and that's not necessarily. It's not inherently a bad thing that one of them is, a considerable amount older than the other. It's certainly less, I think, weird and arguably problematic than if it was the other way around. But it is still odd. And of course, you've also got the kind of power dynamics of, she's his boss and all this. And that's never really been touched on, and never, obviously now isn't going to be. But the stuff with them in episode 3 was really, it made me believe in that relationship. And then of course, all the other characters dying in this, sure, but I didn't expect Colonel Ibrim, who originated in Doctor Who, to be killed off in that way. And there's real blood, and you see the bullet wound, and he's killed in a way that it wouldn't be done in that way in Doctor Who. And I just think it's not the first time that a character introduced in Doctor Who has been killed in a spin-off show. It has, to my knowledge at least, happened once before in class, when the head teacher of Coal Hill, Mr. Armitage, is skinned alive in a very class way. Although I'm a bit of a class defender, I quite enjoy it, more so than most. But, that character shows up very briefly in a couple of episodes in Series 8, but he's not a major player in any sort of way. Ibrahim, meanwhile, has made consistent appearances since The Giggle, where he's been a kind of a clear and consistent member of the kind of new unit family. I think he's the only one to appear in every unit story, every story that unit has appeared in the new era. He's in Lucky Day, isn't he? I'm fairly sure he's in Lucky Day. Although he's not in 73 Yards, which Kate briefly shows up in. But obviously the two finales, he makes an appearance. He's in The Giggle. He's been a kind of recurring face. There's a quite nice moment at the beginning of The Legend of Ruby Sunday, where the Doctor arrives and is introducing Ruby to all the unit people, and has that little fist bump with Ibrahim, which is just a really nice moment. And yeah, a real big swing and a big shock to kill him off in that way. But yeah, what a wonderful moment. And then what that did for Kate's character, I don't think I appreciated how good of an actor Gemma Redgrave is in the entire time she's been on the show. The past, 13 years since she first appeared in The Power of Three. She has never had material like this to work with. The moments in episode 4, where she's dealing with that grief, where she sees the kind of memorial to him and just cries in her car, alone, deflated and exhausted, was wonderful. And we've never seen that from Kate, because Gemma Redgrave has never been given the opportunity to give that kind of a performance. And I'm so glad that she's got that in this, because it's really made me appreciate that character. It also really made me appreciate, kind of moving fully into episode 4, Shirley, Ruth Makeley's character, who I've liked when she's shown, I thought she was fun in the Star Beast and the Giggle. I thought she was, I thought there was an interesting element to her in Wishworld, and then she kind of doesn't really get much to do in that story. But the way she, and the first couple of episodes of this, she felt a little bit surplus. But the way she took control of UNIT, after Kate had clearly been, and as we then find out that, people clearly know about Kate and Ibrahim, because they're not stupid, even though I quite like the fact that Kate thinks, and Ibrahim both think that people don't know, but people do. But they can see it's a good thing for both of them, and they're happy, and so they kind of allow it to happen. But Shirley recognises that Kate is not going to be in the headspace and takes control, and that was a really wonderful moment for her that I found. There was real shades in these couple of episodes as well of Children of Earth, which I know I talked about last week and has been spoken about in the kind of lead up to this show. Russell notably talked about how they use, the same corridors as Children of Earth, and obviously you have Imperial House, which was Thames House, and so on. But the kind of moments with the Prime Minister and Kate, trying to join in those conversations and being shut out by these people going, well, we're just going to kill them because it's easier. And that kind of really great moment with the Prime Minister in the 4th episode, where there's been this sonic detonation, and he's kind of desperately scrambling around, being like, it cannot be connected to it. Tell me it's not connected to us. That's nothing to do with us. But there is this link with a guy who is a big donor, and it seems to be a friend to the Prime Minister, even though the character is a bit of a smug arsehole. And so he has to be gotten rid of in a really obvious way as well. You couldn't make it look like an accident. And obviously that is going to be a thread that is picked up in the finale. The Prime Minister is a little bit... It's one of those things with Doctor Who. We've had lots of Prime Ministers, fictional Prime Ministers, since the show came back in 2005 and a little bit before that as well. But, characters like Harriet Jones, the Master, notably. I don't recall the name of the Prime Minister in Children of Earth, but he clearly comes after Harold Saxon. And then we don't really know who it is for a bit. They don't really touch on it in the Moffat years. And then we get, I forget her name, who was killed by the Daleks in Revolution of the Daleks. Who seems to be a very Theresa May-esque character. But we never really get a clear sense of what kind of parties these Prime Ministers are representing. Are they Conservative? Are they Labour? Are they Lib Dem? Are they Green? Are they, Reform, as we have now, or Albion, as it is in this show, which is I think, a really on the pulse kind of political commentary, which I think a lot of this show has, but that's a really great one, which also has a kind of a link back to Doctor Who. But yeah, are they independent? It's never really clear where the Prime Ministers lie. I can imagine the one from Children of Earth is a Conservative. It's difficult to tell with this current one, where he I'm thinking about when this was written, and we know it was written a few years ago, so before Labour was elected, but he feels kind of like current Labour to me. Not that it really matters, but I liked those kind of the more morally grey shades that are creeping in. And I also thought that the stuff between Barclay and Salt in episode 4 was really interesting, very kind of odd, but really well played. You know, quite a funny erection joke. And again, I don't buy those two quite as much as I did buy Kate and Ibrahim, but I do still buy it. I do buy that there is a kind of an attraction there from both of them that they can't really explain, because sometimes that just happens, you know, to people in real life, where you just meet someone or you see someone and you're just kind of enamoured by them and you can't really explain it. And that is true in real life, and so there's no reason why it couldn't be true in this kind of, you know, with this fish woman. And also that kind of sense of humour, calling his ears fins and stuff. And the fact that she kind of has, it's this thing where she's kind of found this connection with him, has a real attraction to him, he's kind of reciprocating. She kind of takes this immediate response to save him from this, you know, this sonic explosion, saves him with a kiss, of course, and is kind of that thing where he then, you know, helps her escape. And I think it's the kind of thing, the way I interpret it at least, is, you know, she's kind of all in now with him because of the choices she's made, and she knows that she can't go back. We have a kind of a new ambassador, Tide, who shows up for one scene, but I thought was I think what's really interesting about about the way they've characterised I think Salt and Tide are called amphibians, aren't they? Where they're not aggressive, they're not. They kind of come in with a presence where they're like, yeah, let's, you know, if we can do it peacefully, even, you know, in this episode where he's like, do it in 5 years, and that's still impossible, but it's not like do it now, which is they were saying previously. You know, they're not unreasonable, but they are aggrieved, they are aggravated, and they understand that things are being brought to war, and I just find that there's a nuance there which I think could so easily be missed. But the way he comes up, he's like, why are you stupid? Why would you do this to yourself? Why would you kill your own to you know, aggravate this war and to make things worse for everyone? But also, you know, when Kate kind of gives the best honest answer she's got, the fact that he's like, I accept that, and I don't know if he says appreciate, but it's that thing of, it's just people talking like adults, like reasonable adults, and that's so interesting to me. But you do, on the kind of other hand, you have that kind of childlike wonder with Salt, where, you know, they've been very poised and very kind of, it was a certain way, but she is kind of fascinated, and she's kind of smitten with Barclay, and the idea that she could live a life safe on the land, but he's still thinking about, oh yeah, there's waterfalls, there's lakes, there's water you can live in. I just found their dynamic really fascinating, and really interesting, and really lovely, and and it's what you could argue that was Barclay a bit stupid to get lured into a trap, but I'm not sure. I think he was maybe a bit stupid to say let's meet on a massive open bridge, but of course then that's because she's going to escape and go into the water, so sometimes storytelling dictates things. And also it was shot beautifully, as the series has consistently been. Dylan Holmes Williams is such a fantastic director. I'm so glad we have him for this. And Lorne Bow's music has been wonderful as well. But I don't think that Barclay was stupid to trust his family, his child and his ex-partner, but it seems to be it was an amicable split. I don't know if they even said that maybe in one of the episodes. I might have made that up, but they're still on good terms and they still care about each other, and he has no reason to not trust her. But she's also kind of jealous of Salt in a weird, silly way, but also in a way that is very human. And they'd seeded the idea of her being jealous of Salt, and also just the thing of like, why? Oh, sorry. But why would she save you? Why did she? Of course, they're glad that she did because he's still alive. But all these things. I feel there is a real kind of a nuance to the show that is so wonderful. It's so refreshing, and it's so nice to be enjoying the show after being really disappointed by Doctor Who in recent years. It's kind of crazy to me how much better this show is than the main show. Does this mean that Pete McTeague is going to be the next showrunner? Who knows, man? Like, I wouldn't necessarily be against it if he is. I thought Lucky Day was fine. I quite like Praxius. It bounces off me a little bit. But I have a real soft spot for Kablam. I know the ending is a bit weird and it lands kind of pro-Amazon, which it shouldn't be doing that, but there's also so much about that story that I do really like. That, would Pete McTeague be a bad choice? No, but I also want someone brand new, personally. A woman, please. Can we have a female showrunner? I think it's high time. Anyway, yeah, I don't think I have too much else specifically to say. The only kind of thing that was a slight negative for me really was in episode 4, the character who is kind of under Barclay and kind of has this rapport, and Barclay's like, oh, give me the keys. A little bit weird that we've not seen him at all, that I recall. I don't think we've seen him at all. We don't know that relationship at all. And it seemed like Barclay was set up as a very kind of low level. He's the guy who books the taxis. The idea that he's someone else's boss, to me, doesn't quite fit with that necessarily. So that was a little bit of a... Was there a better way of getting him to free Salt? Maybe. I don't know what it could be. But yeah, I mean, I am so thankful to be enjoying this show, and I'm so glad that we direction is fantastic. The music is wonderful. The performances are incredible. What Russell Tovey is doing, that moment in episode 3 where he's with his family before he's about to go in the submersible, and he just breaks down, and he's talking about is this kind of, he's been holding himself together, and the idea that the entire world is counting on him to get this right. It just hits him. It's fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. The performances in this show are wonderful. This is brilliant drama, and I'm sad there's only one episode left. I really, really hope this sticks the landing. I will be so disappointed if the ending is bad. I really, really hope that this works and that it's good and that it concludes in a strong, satisfying way. I have faith, but I've had faith before with this kind of production team. It is Russell back on board for the finale. It's Russell and Pete McTeague writing, and Russell's last 2 finales don't give me a lot of hope, but we will see. Let me know what you think. I'm having a blast with this show. I'm sad it's almost over, but I also can't wait for next week to roll around to get to see this last episode. So those are my thoughts on episodes 3 and 4 of The War Between the Land and the Sea. Really great show, but please do like the video if you liked it. Comment, let me know what you think. Subscribe if you haven't already. And I will see you next week for the final episode, the end of the war. Bye bye.